Arvoyarns.
Yeah, easy.
Pop a number on it.
That's how economics works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, but there's something profound about that, in that, like, you know, it's a struggle to quantify anything. It's a struggle to be able to make any definite statement about, like, any of these really, really hard questions. And, like, so much of economics is, like, and in general, thinking about these things, they're all kind of stabs in the dark. I mean, there's, like, a great mathematical foundation for a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you know...
It's kind of crap all over economics right now.
Well,
I can feel it.
It's just that, I mean, people look at it similar to, you know, like a kind of art in a way, that it's like...
There it is.
Each economist is offering something.
Saying that
offering a model that might help.
Insult.
Yes.
Right, like as opposed to the dream of like a unified theory of all economics or something.
And you know what,
like
we will not... That's one of the things. Economics is a social science. I fully was aware of your illusions.
Your backhanded comment.
It's not a bad.
I'm joking.
It's not a bad thing, but I think the issue
I
would say is, how do, you know, people who are interested in it, like, collaborate and use their powers for good?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, when in some ways there can only be like a piecemeal approach.
Yeah, and it's always adjusting and optimizing. It's like you know, when we had when was that so a good example is the Great Depression, right? Because you had two things which people thought in our economic models at the time wouldn't go together. You had unemployment on a massive scale, and inflation. Yes, and people thought those things didn't work together, and people didn't know how to approach it, and it took like Keynes tweaking it a little bit to explain it and come up with a potential solution. And economics is a lot of tweaking and a lot of trying to dig, but that's the same with any science. I mean, whether social sciences are really like moving forward, you can make the same argument about all other sciences. Are they really moving forward, like getting to the universal truth? I mean, that universal truth of economics has to be embedded somewhere. Maybe if you prescribe to universal truths, it has to be embedded somewhere in, like, almost in our DNA, right? So economics is adjusting and adapting. You know, we have behavioral economics, which is trying to get at, maybe some of our anthropological quirks that we might not have ironed out, why we're not 100% rational. And neuroeconomics and taking from psychology and economists are borrowing a lot of crazy math too. So, but those are good points. Where were we right before this? We were talking about
butts. You can't argue. You can't get paid for supplying butts in your your economy argument unless you're suffering without the butt.
I mean, there's a case to be made that we would all suffer greatly without
butts.
The thing is, I'd be suffering right now because this chair would be too hard for me.
Think about right, yeah. These chairs are actually really interesting because they're my grandmother's, and shout out to my grandma. This house, if she could see it, man, if she could, this is just got my grandmother all over it.
Link to the shop in the just kidding.
So, in the old Victorian era, they wouldn't use any nails a lot of times.
Is this all joined?
It's all joined. It's all joined. And joined is actually way stronger because when you screw things, obviously you make little micro cracks.
And you have the same density. And
but with this, it lasts for so much longer. I think these chairs are over 100 years old. Actually, they definitely be...
less shearing, yeah.
Yeah, actually, in fact, I don't have it here, but one of the chairs that was in the old Congress, that was in Congress like way back in the day in the 1700s, my grandmother had it.
Really?
And it was in the same style, yeah. And it's interesting, too, Japanese people...
They've been doing joining...
The Japanese architecture is considered... it's in some cases like considered like not like economically scalable because of the way that it sort of demands things to be
and craftsmanship also.
And
like
this like just like the time, but the way that you can line up things with this one type of Japanese architecture, which I don't know the name of, is considered the most.
What if I knew that name right off the top of my head?
That would be so great.
Yeah. I didn't take notes well enough for this.
Yeah.
It is. It's like
pretty interesting.
It's a very high form. I think actually. So I was watching this thing with Nick Offerman from Parks and Recreation, Mr. Ron Swanson.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Anyway, but he's like a professional woodworker. Not a I mean, he did all that.
He looks like he is.
Yeah, right. And he just in these little interviews, he goes on and on about like Japanese woodworking, and it's like funny seeing him, Mr. Ron Swanson talk about that. So.
Yeah, it's so funny when like you see people and they like so perfectly match the archetype or the concept that you had just totally projected on them. Just totally projected that, oh, you go home and you get a big pile of sawdust on the table.
That's what I actually thought the first time I met you, Pete. I was like, this is, what's the word? Peat.
Sawdust.
Peat flavored.
Yeah, it's not far off.
Yeah.
Shout out to Eric Teitelbaum family.
Yeah.
He is a amateur professional.
Mm-hmm.
Woodwork?
Yeah, basically. He makes tree houses, just on the side though.
Nice. I built a treehouse once. It was great.
Yeah?
My dad. It took so long. I was at
because you used the Japanese method.
Yes. Yeah, and I didn't know much about the Japanese method when I was 8, so that's why.
So your dad's like, this is shit.
Yeah. And then he sent me to Japan to get a apprenticeship.
That's actually really considerate.
When I came back 10 years later, no. But it
didn't let you touch.
It took us so long to build that damn treehouse that by the time we were finished, I was too big to fit in the treehouse, which is great. Yeah, it was so good.
Like as you like put the,
I was like 18. I was like.
You go inside the house, but like you're just putting on the final door, and you're like, oh, I have to put it on. Just do it from the outside, and you're like, oh, I can't go in now.
Or it's doing it from the inside, and you're trapped in there forever.
Yeah.
That happened.
Whoa.
I'm astrally projecting myself to be with you guys today, so please free me.
Well, there is the whole... The universe is a hologram. We're not going to go there.
So did we have any lingering questions about economics and the solution to all of the world's problems?
I don't...
Great.
No, I mean...
Question.
Well, here's one...
Yes and no.
Here's one cool thing that I've been thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
So one big problem in economics is actually testing. And that's a big problem in any science. And I did say science. So one thing that I think would be really cool and trippy is, so you obviously can't go into a real economy. You can't say like, Delaware. Delaware's always a bad example. You can't say like, Wisconsin. You just don't get any subsidies for health.
Yeah, see how that works.
So the rest of the country does. You can't do tests like that when the stakes are so real. So one thing I was thinking about that would be really cool. Yes, absolutely. Because you can divide your populations up into different servers and even into different like subgroups with different characteristics.
The other thing is that, to the extent that people's personal lives are like cushioned from, economic shifts, then you can do more experiments. Like a lot of the problem is that like
true. It's just too much.
You're fucking with people's ability to like clothe themselves and eat.
Also,
but like in a world where there's a basic minimum income or something, I mean, people would
what do you
but then people would argue,
who
are you to fuck with my basic minimum then?
Yeah, exactly. and who do you compare it to? I mean, like you can't say, the east side of America gets basic minimum income and the west side doesn't. I mean, apart from that being unethical, you have all the East Coast and West Coast states being like arguably very different in terms of
quite haphazardly.
Yes, haphazardly.
100 years.
So and things like that. But video games would be really cool, I think, to do that.
I thought about this.
My whole thing is just one.
Good.
The day,
don't mess with
I don't know
my
if they've
account.
Invented this yet, but I mean, the day that video games pay you to play them.
Well, I mean, obviously that already happens, right? With some people.
Well, I mean, if you like a sport.
It's called esports.
Yeah, it's esports though.
No, but I mean,
esports is totally a real sport. What are you talking about?
I'm just surprised there aren't more games where, like,
say?
you're doing, like the whole CAPTCHA thing, where they're like, oh yeah, well, like, we'll get people, prove they're human, we'll use that to, like, help train our neural networks to recognize images. Yeah. Whereas it's like, you're paid based on your value added to, like, you participated in this economics video game, and
we don't have
added to
we
this
don't
amount
have rights for metadata.
This transitions perfectly into what I was going to say, because I've talked about this in the podcast before. Like, I thought, like, I'm not sold on this being what's happening, but I feel like on some level it kind of is what's happening with, like, the universe. Is that okay? I'm the universe, and I'm like a being of some kind, and I desire to go somewhere for some reason. I'm in some type of vehicle larger than myself to go there, right? I'm using some type of thing to go there, and it takes a certain amount of time, right? So I'm going to travel across the universe, right? So what's the most efficient use of my time? To go into, like, VR scenarios where I can be a being and have it. To me, it's total high stakes because I think I'm going to die.
Yeah, okay.
And I will die as Pete or whatever. And then, but it's for this algorithm of, okay, well, based on, like, the meta circumstance of this being, you need to have, like, this life, and you need to be like a 13th century, like, Chinese girl. You gotta be like you gotta be Pete, and you gotta be like a cellist, and you gotta be homeless in the Byzantine Empire, and, like, or like whatever it is, right?
Example,
and then you just keep going through, and then you're ding, we're here, and then you're like, okay, cool, that was the most efficient training that I could have had.
Wow,
is to live
yeah.
as much as I could, right? And then it goes to, it goes to the economy model, right? Where it's like, well, when do you get paid? And it's like, how do you get paid by the video game saying, okay, you're good. Now, if it's really getting paid, you would say when the video game is completely over, in a way. You, like, would that be, like, when no pieces of the video, you couldn't be playing the video game, that's when you really get paid. You couldn't, can they, is it cheating to say, oh, I'm going to give you in-game currency for your contribution? Like, oh, wait, no, I wanted a higher level of money.
Cash.
I didn't want, like, a new skin for my battle axe.
I wanted Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. Wait, that was leading me down a little rabbit hole there.
Where are you in the hole?
I was, well, no, it's an economist might say that, so a video game is leisure, right? And you have a choice that you're making between leisure and work to get paid, right? So, but then at the same time, like, you have your own sensibility of what's more important to you, more leisure, more pay. And so, in a way, those things are the same thing, because, like, you are sacrificing that time, that's your opportunity cost, where you could be working, earning money, is playing a video game for your leisure, right? So you're equating getting paid with the value of that leisure, the same. So in a sense, when you are playing a video game, you are getting the same amount of satisfaction or utility as being paid for that amount of time.
And I don't believe that.
Well, video games are just such a dense, focused source of entertainment for so many people that it's easy to see why people love video games so much, because it makes up for this, that little bit of leisure. You
don't have to climb to a mountain. You can do it in Skyrim, which is really fun in Skyrim, to be fair. Yeah. I will say. It's fucking great.
Or, like, scream at a dragon. Is that Skyrim? Yeah.
That's what I was always fantasizing about, is yelling at dragons.
Just yelling.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember, shout out to Davion Atkins, really good buddy of mine. He's an interesting cat. I met him in New Zealand. He was American like me. He was from LA. He's from Compton, but he was gay, and he
sound like a song.
Yeah, it is. Mixtape coming out next week. So he basically couldn't come out as gay because of, like, the thing of his family and everything, and then so he became overweight, and then he, like, left. He was at UCLA, but he still hadn't told anybody, and then he, like, goes abroad and just starts absolutely killing it more and more and more, and he, like, travels. I I lived in the same town as him in New Zealand, and I lived in the same place as him twice in Australia for just as it happened to be. And so we were both traveling and stuff, and he had since like gotten super jacked and like super fit and super good. Like,
overweight was he?
Oh, he was like obese. And he's a really big dude, but now he's like jacked, and he's like super tall. And we were talking once in the middle of Australia in the town of Yulara, which is where Uluru is, the biggest rock in the world. Because we worked there together. He actually helped me get a job there.
Nice.
And we were laughing because we were saying, man, people say just because you're unhealthy with like your body or something doesn't mean you can't experience happiness.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely true. Like, obviously it doesn't, like, happiness isn't determinant upon any one thing, you know, right? Like just like people who sacrifice their bodies in ways like, but to be so good at video games because like that's where they want to like work out and stuff. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. But we were saying was, on the meta level of every single feeling that we have at any given time, the more fit that we were, the better we felt about everything. The colors were more vivid, the lights were brighter, the vision was sharper, the feelings that came were stronger, and the baseline didn't go as low, and the ability for it to go as low was harder.
Really?
Just from being exercised. And I think that while you can get a certain amount of in-game skin,
I see what you mean. Like those things don't qualitatively like connect. Like those things are not the same. Yeah.
No, to some extent, because people can get ultimate enjoyment from, you know, living with a Japanese sex doll. And, like, ultimately, like, is there anything wrong with that? Like, what if, like, by making love to my girlfriend, this person that, like, loves Japanese sex doll can get the same amount of fulfillment? Like, now, there's nothing, like, wrong with it either way. But from our experience, we were laughing, we were saying, it seems, though, that the more you're in touch with your body as much as possible and the world at large as much as possible, the higher the highs, at least.
Yeah,
the higher the highs.
So this might tie us back into the Adam Smith thing, kind of the difference between appearing lovely and being lovely, or the subjective or objective loveliness that you have. So do you think, I mean, I can't speak for the Japanese sex doll having population, but I can only speak for myself. But like there's a question there. It's like, is having the sex doll, is that the kind of fulfilling that being lovely aspect, or is it filling a void for that person? Like, what kind of, how do we, what's the actual happiness there?
It raises a really big question about capacity, right? Yeah. Because like a lot of studies show that, for instance, like if you watch porn, you release a lot of dopamine.
Yes.
But when you have sex, you release a lot of serotonin, not a lot of dopamine.
Yeah.
And it sort of stimulates higher brain functioning areas of the brain to be able to do it. And so it I don't know if the argument is that just dopamine release is better than serotonin. Of course, they all have their time and place, and they're sort of built on top of each other and sort of the evolutionary of the brain. But it seems that the experience of this more meta concept of the sex with a partner is more fulfilling than the more static circumstance of,
static is a good word for it.
Of the doll.
It's so, and that's a big problem with economics too, is it's like we just have a catch-all term for that, which is utility, which is great because it just,
it swipes
everything's just utility. And one of the things that we like to assume all the time is that it's you can order that like on a 2-dimensional thing.
Of course you can.
Well, not always 2-dimensional, but we do say that there's like some ordinality to it. Like, this is definitely more than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just so hard. Like, that's one of the a problem that bedeviled economists. People were trying to say like that the satisfaction that you could get from something like consuming a candy bar could be turned into a quantitative data piece called a util for a while. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, what's it? So what was that? A util?
It's just like a candy bar gives you 5 utils of satisfaction, right? 5 peat utils.
What is that based on?
Based relative to the 20 utils you would get from an Asian sex doll, Japanese sex doll.
But what is but if it's like $1 equals how much gold, what's the metric?
You've hit it on the nose.
What's the util?
Actually, you've also debunked gold and money at the same time. Nothing. It's absolutely nothing. That's why it's so hard to prove. It's like you can say, how many water particles there are in a glass of water, but you can't say how many utils there are in a peat.
That's why.
Yeah, because at an even deeper level, like we don't even really blockchain.
Right? Can we go there?
There's a mystery. No. There's like a philosophical mystery about perception.
We're not nearly smart enough. We also shouldn't talk about Bitcoin. I'm just not smart enough.
Bitcoin's
anyway.
on the shit list.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's a question about the nature of perception because, you're trying to quantify the utils or like whatever. Now, okay,
utils.
So one way of thinking about that is we're gonna vary like the counterfactuals. We're gonna be like, okay, here's a bunch of counterfactual situations and like relative to these other like possible universes, like this is how I'm gonna quantify it. Or maybe you take a sort of like evolutionary approach. You say, oh well, the reason that you feel pleasure or here, pain there is because of your evolutionary history. Like the body is set up so that it's like, well, of course,
right there.
Yeah, of course, it's fucking he's gonna feel good.
Yeah.
Because
hey, babe,
we gotta do this.
But then the question is sort of like, okay, so this thing's pleasurable because it makes us what, like a more efficient evolutionary organism.
Okay.
But then there's a deeper question about
if you can love what gives you the most evolution.
Or is perception, is there a superfluous aspect to it?
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
So if you,
I totally think so.
Believe in some version of a qualia type theory or like whatever.
Oh, is that like the picture things basically where reality is? Wait, what's the one where it's like reality is actually just a jumble of snapshots, and it's only the evolution of the human brain that was able to make it into a coherent for us picture. Not that that's how it is, but that's just how we.
Yeah, there's a million
versions.
That's
certainly
true.
Yeah,
like so it's
like it's just a random jumble at any time.
Yeah, if you do quantum mechanics, it's like you realize that so far as the mathematical structures encode the information, it's all mixed up in some big tensor product.
Yeah.
And you just sort of have to remember, this piece refers to the spin of a particle over here. This piece refers to the spin of a particle over there. But it is all jumbled up.
Yeah. But
my main point was something that well, it could be that pleasure is good in itself. Right? So that the perception itself, and it's not, because you could flip the reasoning on its reverse. The reason, it could have been that things, always experience the pleasure of making love. Yeah. But then there were some beings who only experienced it when they had sex. So, of course, those beings reproduced and had a lot of sex so they could get back to that feeling.
That's true. Also, just on a quick aside, did you know that no Greek philosopher ever that's known about or documented ever Plato. We don't want to go there.
But Socrates.
Yeah. But anyway, so what was I saying? Anyway, there's no Greek philosopher that I have come across that really advocated for pure hedonism, just pleasure is the only good thing out there. There was never a Greek philosopher that said that.
Yeah.
And it's weird because we're living in are we living in a super hedonistic time?
Yes and no.
Are we still actively constraining ourselves?
Well, yeah, of course we are. I mean, and no. It like, I think that if you look at like the obesity thing right now, it's a great example. Okay, what happened today?
I don't think...
What happened today? Do you know what really, really important human evolutionary accomplishment just happened today? Do you guys know?
What? Wake up in the morning?
It's not the anniversary. It literally happened today. Like, I don't know if you guys heard.
What?
A dude from Kenya broke the 2-hour mile. He did it.
Really?
He did it in 1 hour and 59 minutes and 40 seconds, I think.
Oh, okay. That could have gone anywhere.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Now, okay.
So, but we have more fat people than ever. We have more people that are overexerting themselves than ever. But we also have for the first time ever, this accomplishment as well. So it's kind of like it's going in both directions.
Arvoyarns.